Thank you, Steve. Beautiful music. And, okay, I'm just going to ring the bell, so let's see if that works. This is our way of opening our service and welcoming everybody to Interfaith Community Sanctuary. Thank you for being here this morning. I'm better off if I just hold this thing. Thank you for being here. What a beautiful morning, and happy Labor Day weekend to everybody. End of summer, beginning of fall coming up. No, I know. But, fall's a beautiful season, too. And just look out the windows, We can still pretend it's summer for a while yet. And we're very happy to have everybody here with us today, and especially our guest presenter, who you'll hear more about in a minute. I'm going to welcome the ancestors, and I have a little story to tell. Today's a kind of a story day for our openings. Something happened this morning on my family call. Every Sunday morning since COVID began back in 2020, my siblings and I have 4 siblings. There are 5 of us in my family. Both of my parents have passed on. Every Sunday since 2020, we have been getting together on a Zoom call, not missed one, really, literally, almost. Sometimes one or the other of us misses it, but one of my sisters wasn't there today, but most of the time we're there. But my youngest sister told us a wonderful story I have to share, and it's about ancestors. Why are ancestors so important? Or what's the thing about ancestors, right? I know as an American, or growing up in America, I didn't have a real connection to my ancestors. I come from immigrant parents. Both my parents were born in the U.S., but they're first generation U.S., and their parents were born. My father's parents were born in Russia and Austria, and my mother's parents were born in Greece. So my youngest sister, Diana, her son is very interested in genealogy, and he's gotten the other side of his family, his father's mother has gotten him interested in that side of the family, the genealogy, and he kept asking my sister, well, what about your side? What about your side? And my sister's like, well, I don't really know a whole lot. But he kept bugging her, and she was cleaning out her basement last week. She found an envelope with an address from Greece. The envelope was empty, but it was still there in this box, and it had an address on it from Greece. So she took it to her son and said, well, I don't know. Why don't you try writing to this? That might be somebody. Well, he not only wrote a nice letter to her asking who it was, and did they know anything about our family. And my sister said, well, throw in your email just in case. Well, yesterday, Scott got an email back from this relative. Her name is Puppy. The minute Diana said her name, I remembered her. Oh, Puppy, she's one of Mom's cousins. Yes, she was one of Mom's cousins. And she got the letter, and she was so excited to hear from Scott and wanted to, was excited. What do you need to know? Let's exchange information. Scott was like up the ceiling in happiness because this little clue, he had been bugging his mom. Don't you have anything? Well, what it taught us all, it just made me so happy. And what made me happy was the connection that we had made. And suddenly, memories started coming back. Who was this? Yeah, I thought her daughter came to Baltimore, and wait a minute, didn't she live? We're trying to figure out what we remember about this woman and how old she might be. And she did say that she was a cousin of my mom's, and it brought back this warm feeling. It still does. So ancestors are important, and our connection with them can be literal, it can be physical, and it can be on so many other levels. So let's take a moment here this morning and connect with our ancestors. And they're not always just blood ancestors, but it starts there. So let's take a moment and welcome them and thank them and send love to them and open ourselves to receiving from them as well. We're all in this small world together. Now, in the Native American tradition, of course, ancestors are given a very deep meaning, and it seems like the more you know something, the deeper you can go with it, and I feel that about everything that we learn about, especially in a spiritual connection. So in the Native American tradition, all my relations are ancestors. And as I know Brother Steve likes to point out to us, there isn't one living creature or being on the world that isn't related to us somewhere back there when the first life evolved on Earth. And being a scientist myself and having a scientific father, I know that's true. That this whole idea that there's certain people we're related to and not others is just not correct. It's just short-sighted, right? So all our relations are here with us. And the Native American people have been living that way for so many millennia. And we can learn from that we have received from all our relations, and we owe to all our relations in the future a world that can continue and be thriving and flourishing. So we thank our First Peoples ancestors, the Coast Salish people who lived here, the Duwamish tribe who lived in particular on this very land, and they're still here. It's not a past tense, it's a present tense as well. And so we honor them, we thank them, and we acknowledge that we are living on unceded territory that once belonged to the Creator and was still belongs to the Creator and is still being stewarded by all of us who care to take that responsibility. So thank you. And I will invite Vicki up to tell another little story in honor of the Divine Feminine. Yeah.
So this little piece that I'm going to read is called Gate A4. It's from a collection of essays and poems by the author Naomi Shihab Nye. She's an Arab American who is a songwriter, a poet, a novelist, and she has written some lovely things, and I hope you find this lovely as well. And this piece is about two women, the author being one of them, who meet at an airport they had never met before, and the connection that they make, the compassion that they have for one another, and it's a really wonderful example of the divine feminine in our world. So here we go. It's called Gate A4. Wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal, after learning my flight had been delayed 4 hours, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of Gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my own gate. I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing. Help, said the flight agent. Talk to her. What is her problem? We told her the flight was going to be late, and she did this. I stooped to put my arm around the woman and spoke haltingly. Shudoa, shubidu kabibti, stanishwe, min fadlik shubit sewi. The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment the next day. I said, no, we're fine. You'll get there just later. Who's picking you up? Let's call him. We called her son. I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane and would ride next to her. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons, just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course, that they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took up 2 hours. She was laughing a lot by then, telling of her life, patting my knee, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamoul cookies, little powdered sugar crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts, from her bag, and was offering them to all the women at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, we were all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free apple juice from huge coolers, and 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving it, and they were covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green furry leaves. Such an old country tradition. Always carry a plant, always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around that gate of late and weary ones, and I thought, this is the world I want to live in. The shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost.
My dear friends, it gives me such immense joy on behalf of Interfaith Community Sanctuary to both welcome, a heartfelt welcome, and introduce Reverend Ruth Ann to our wonderful place here. By the way, do look in the program on the second page. There are wonderful sort of biography of Ruth Ann. She's a remarkable teacher, engaging presenter, and a wise author of at least 2 books, and hopefully in a 3rd one by now. But what I really want to say is I have known Ruth Ann for at least, I think, over 2 decades, and in 2 phases. The first phase, I think from 2001 to 2012, when her beloved, really, and I mean it with humility and sincerity, one of the most remarkable men I've met, her beloved husband, passed away. So in the first phase, I knew them as a power couple. And Rich Henry, her beloved husband, was so creative about interfaith, so dedicated to the cause of interfaith. And those of you remember, from 2001 onwards, this city was sizzling, bubbling with interfaith activities. So Interfaith Community Sanctuary, Interfaith Amigos, myself, we met quite often. And how many times have you invited me? And they co-founded a church in Woodinville, Unity Center of Peace, if I remember. I think a couple of people are from that community. The second phase is after her beloved husband passed away. It really was very tragic. We were really deeply hurt. This wonderful lady who was so bonded with her husband, she was, quite frankly, heartbroken. Heartbroken. And this led to a different kind of ministry. She let go of the church, and she has become a presenter, a teacher, and a writer, doing a quiet but very powerful ministry, spreading a perfume of light and love everywhere she goes. And I want to tell you that we are very connected to you and to your old church, because these chairs you see here, these are a special gift from her church. And secondly, we have Diane Shalander from that community, who is another pillar of our community. So with that, my friends, let's give our wonderful guest a wonderful welcome.
Can you hear me now? Oh, good. I always come into these gatherings and with such anticipation and such joy and gratitude and just amazement that people show up, that people come willingly to these gatherings. Even though you know it all already, even though you've heard all of these words over and over again, you come, you show up, you're here. And for that, I am deeply, deeply grateful and deeply, deeply respectful of your commitment to this work. last month you were studying the topic of compassion, I understand, here at ICS. And of course, that's more than just a monthly value for this community, right? This is a deeply held value here. And it's also one that I share also very, very deeply. As this spontaneous arising of the heart's deepest, deepest knowing. And for some years now, I have been pursuing a understanding of compassion, because although my heart seems to know, I'm curious about how to learn more about compassion, how to cultivate it, how to be more of it myself, and how to see more of it in the world, how to cultivate a feel of compassion that is nurturing and sustaining for all beings. And also, what stands in our way? What stands in our way of achieving this? Looking at this with a purposeful awareness, a most basic but very important aspect of mindfulness, what Edward Bastian refers to in his book, Interspiritual Meditation, mindfulness as an internal ally. Don't you love that? An internal ally that helps us take a breath and step back and look within myself, within my beliefs and my thoughts, and to see what more I could learn. This has been my journey with compassion. What more can I learn? And I'm still learning. So I hope that you won't mind if I share just a little bit of some of the things that have been helpful to me about compassion, although I realize that you're all very advanced practitioners here, and that you know all of this already. And please, thank you for being patient with me about this. I heard a little example that has been very helpful for me in a practical way, and it's in a very heartfelt way. It's probably an example you've heard many, many times, but it's especially meaningful to me, so I'd like to share it. It's an example offered by, apparently, the Dalai Lama, and it goes like this. Imagine that you're in an airplane flying low over the islands, and that's not hard to imagine here, and there's scattered pockets of fog. And looking down through the clearing, you see a very small rocky point protruding out of the water. And you notice someone on it waving for help. And you feel powerless. And you feel concerned because, like so much suffering in our world, there's no way to reach this person or to get help before they're swept away. But then you see through the fog that there is an island close by that they can't see. So close, it's so close that there might even be a shallow land bridge to it. One could easily swim to it if they couldn't wade through the waters. And you would be aware of what is possible. And you would want to do whatever you could to alert the person and point the way to safety, or at least to get a message to send help. When I heard that story, and it still affects me, when I heard that story, I could feel the sense of urgency arising in me. And haven't you too at some time seen what is possible for someone, the greater good for someone, and you've wanted it in such a way, with a kind of longing that aches? And this is one way that compassion expresses itself, as the heart aches when the mind sees that there is the possibility for a shift in perspective that would allow us to see the way to avoid unnecessary suffering. The kind of suffering caused when, with just a different point of view, a different action, a different belief, we might find our way to safety. A kind of fierce compassion arises, and you want with all your heart what is possible for the well-being of others. Compassion, as you know, at its core, recognizes things are always changing.
I think it might be the battery.
Oh, the battery. Sometimes I feel like that too. My batteries
Okay.
need to be. Oh, okay.
Divine intervention, it worked.
Thank you. Thank you for your help with that. But that's such a beautiful quote. I hope you don't mind if I repeat it. Stephen Levine said, "We are all members of the community of impermanence." Ooh, yes. And so when we see that person stranded on the rock, there is this instant recognition of our shared need for safety, a heartfelt, clear seeing that all beings everywhere wish for this soft place to land, for a refuge in life's storms, for help to arrive before it's too late. And as you are aware, thank you. Thank you, Brother Jamal. Does that work? So, as you're all very aware, empathy and compassion are deeply entwined, yes? It wouldn't do to try and separate this very devoted couple. And yet each one brings something slightly different to the sacred dance. Compassion is more like that view from the airplane, a floodlight of attention that allows perspective and considers the best actions to take, while empathy is more like a spotlight of attention, like being down there on the rock with the stranger. Empathy allows us to imagine and connect with what another is feeling, and this is very important, because if we're unable to imagine and connect with what another is feeling, it becomes more likely to dehumanize and desensitize, to deny others their rights. Empathy is this beautiful, heartfelt caring, and yet it can be difficult to bear, very difficult to bear another's fear and hopelessness. It's been said that empathy is like salt. A little makes things great, and too much is harmful for your health. It wouldn't serve anyone to jump out of that airplane into the water to try and save that person. And so for this important work, we need to take a breath and be mindfully aware when the pain of caring for others is too much to bear, and ask our heart, what can I do for you? What do you need? There may be a feeling state to compassion, but most often it's a presence more than an emotion, a sustainable presence with a heart space and a vision of a larger world where caring and concern is possible. And compassion is the determined movement towards that possibility. Empathy and compassion just arise spontaneously as this natural outpouring of care, and they both require mindfulness, attention, insight, self-care, wisdom to stabilize us in the face of emotional upset. Wisdom, you might even say, is mindful awareness that can help balance our empathy, knowing what to say yes to and what to say no to, and when to just step back and breathe and rest. We may not be able to save that person on the rock, but we give what we can, where we can, how we can, as you do in this community. Kind word to a stranger, our encouragement, our gratitude to one another, even being a calm, centering, silent presence in the midst of another's distress. Extending the loving kindness blessing, all are meaningful acts of compassion. No gesture is too small. Yesterday, I was walking around downtown in Edmonds, where I live, and I passed a car with a sticker on it that said, "I hope something wonderful happens for you today. I hope something wonderful happens for you today." It was like a little baby meditation, meta blessing, a little mini meta. And I felt the buoyancy of that as I walked on my way. So no gesture is too small to make a difference, to fuel this expanding, energetic field of compassion. And as we do this work, there's also the recognition that there's a lot that we might not have counted on. The understanding that this is more difficult. It can be more difficult than we thought. It's not just a warm, smumpy feeling, but a real commitment. And we won't do it perfectly. And meeting that painful realization with self-compassion. But here is another way that mindfulness serves compassion. It turns us towards compassionate inquiry, open curiosity into what is the problem here? What is the root cause of so much unnecessary suffering? Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, "There comes a time when instead of just pulling people out of the river, we have to go upstream and find out who's pushing them in." And at the core of so many of our problems is some persistent belief that has its hold on us. An inherited belief, an unexamined assumption, a widespread belief that compassion is weak, that the poor are lazy, that the rich are heartless, that we're right and they're wrong, beliefs in our rugged individualism, beliefs in our self-sufficiency, all those beliefs draining our energy for creative solutions and causing so much conflict. What are these things we call beliefs? Well, they're just something that we take as true. Although beliefs are really just thoughts. They're thoughts supercharged with the attention that we give them. They are opinions. And a belief is really more about believing than even that a particular thing is true. A belief isn't just a thought that controls the mind, it's a thought that possesses the mind. But because beliefs affect so many aspects of our lives, our experience of reality, it's important to bring a mindful awareness to our beliefs. Because we're very good at latching on to a belief, but not necessarily so good at determining if a belief is true. But please let me be very clear here, beliefs are inevitable. We're gonna have them, we're gonna keep on having them. I've tried to say, well, I'm not gonna believe anymore, anything, and I find that that's a belief. So I'm not proposing that we do away with them, but sometimes I wish for a moratorium on beliefs, just a little break. And I like to imagine, what if, like those alerts that go out, that emergency broadcasting system that goes out let's say every Sunday morning, around 10 o'clock, a church bell rings, a chime rings out, a gong, and an announcement goes forth. For the next 60 seconds, your beliefs about yourself and others will be temporarily suspended. What if we looked at each other? What if we looked in the mirror with that kind of clarity? I imagine, what if we could stop believing that we're different affiliations, religious or political or otherwise? What if we could appreciate our differences rather than just believing them? And when those beliefs are dropped, here is what I imagine. There is so much love. Imagine yourself finding yourself in a moment of pure presence, of the eternal sunrise in your heart and in your soul and your mind. What would that be like? I asked that question once at a retreat, and someone said, it would be freedom. I tell the story just about anywhere where someone might listen, and here you are. It's about an incident I had at college. I was taking a class in the philosophy of religion, and I was one of those students that every professor loves, a young person who really didn't need the benefit of their wisdom because I already had all the answers. I certainly did. I knew it was one way. And I knew what you had to believe and what happened to you if you didn't believe in a very specific way. So I was really there just to help him, educate him. But then the professor challenged me. He said, you have to take responsibility for your beliefs. What? You need to look at the implications of whatever it is you believe. What is the impact of what you believe on yourself and others, your relationships with humans, non-humans? So, in other words, if I had a belief that those who believe differently than I did, those people were condemned eternally to suffering and damnation, I had to take responsibility for that. And it didn't fit. It didn't fit with what I held most dear to my heart, which was mercy and understanding and compassion. And as obvious as it seems, I had never thought about it, about how a belief needs to be held to a high standard and fit with my values. Beliefs that are fearful, they exclude and they condemn, and they're merciless, and they're very dense. It's difficult to hear the voices of our better nature through those kinds of beliefs. So we have to mindfully look at the implications of those beliefs, and I am still considering this teaching all the time. It was, and it is, for me, life-changing. Rutger Bregman, he's a Dutch historian, and he wrote a book called Humankind, A Hopeful History. And he takes on this commonly held belief about human nature. He calls it a persistent myth that our very human nature is selfish and aggressive and quick to panic. And that we have this thin surface of civility that is weak and subject to crack at any moment. And he exposes the flaws in this myth in his research, and he puts a whole different light on the subject. Of course, it's very complicated. He doesn't deny this. He understands that, yes, struggle and conflict are clearly present in our human history, and yet cooperation was much more critical for survival. Our distant ancestors relied on cooperation not as a belief, but as a basic fact of life. Bregman notes the power of beliefs to shape our experiences and our worldview, and he takes to task those that exploit our natural inclination to be alert for danger, to keep us safe. He says that there is this questionable belief that when we are consuming the media, that we're better informed and more responsible citizens. And he cites dozens of studies that reveal that the news is a mental health challenge that encourages hopelessness, leading to more depression and stress. And he goes so far as to call it propaganda for promoting mean world syndrome. The way that the news is often presented, not always, but often presented, breeds cynicism. And cynicism is easy. Cynicism is easy answers, an easy theory of everything. When someone does something unkind, cruel, we're quick to say, well, that's human nature for you. But when someone does something kind and generous and thoughtful and considerate, in the many ways that they do daily, does anyone ever say, well, that's human nature for you? Why is it so difficult to change our beliefs? When not being mindful and rethinking our beliefs has such dire consequences. Well, having a fixed belief can feel comfortable in times of anxiety. It can offer us safety. Even fearful beliefs lead people to believe that they have something reliable to hold on to. So much so that if our beliefs are challenged, it can feel very risky and threatening. We can become defensive when questioned. And then that makes us more entrenched as we defend them. And it's very dangerous when we make our beliefs our identity, because the ego always tends to fight for its identity and its perspective. Getting to the truth of something, why does that have to be so personal? Someone once said to change your mind is the best evidence that you have one. But unfortunately, we don't live in a world that values rethinking our views or admitting our wrong ideas and choices. It takes courage to be mindful, to rethink, to reconsider our positions and our opinions and our fears. To do so, to be willing to challenge our beliefs, to be willing to question our inherited beliefs is an act of devotion towards our own precious good hearts. It's so important to be mindful and question our beliefs. And there are many ways to do this, and so I'm going to suggest 4 ways here, simply ways to mindfully explore and test your beliefs, and we'll move through these very quickly. First, the question is, how did we come to our beliefs in the first place? Well, generally, there's a story there that starts early in life when the seeds are sown of what would become your worldview, beliefs about good and bad and right and wrong, beliefs about other people. Now, here's an example. In our Western culture, there is a belief dating back into Greek and Roman times, yet prevalent as a pattern in our society today, that compassion has to be deserved. For example, it's okay to be compassionate towards someone who through some accident or illness suffers, but beyond that, we have to be worthy of compassion. Worthy of compassion? I find this unbelievable. The second question is, how does having your belief make you feel? It's quite common that a belief will make people feel that they are more and less in control of unknown situations. Does your belief make you feel self-righteous? Ooh, watch out for that one. Or does it make you feel more understanding? Do your beliefs make you feel more fearful, suspicious, cynical? The third question, are your beliefs useful? If we ask our beliefs about their usefulness, we find out if they motivate us. Do they motivate us, or do they limit us? Do they inspire us, or do they depress us? Here's one of those fill-in-the-blank questions. Ask yourself this question. How does my belief about blank expand or limit my ability to love? How does my belief about, could be race, religion, politics, whatever, expand or limit my ability to give and receive love? The fourth question, what are the implications, the consequences, the impact, the side effects of our beliefs? Now, this is a question that tests our beliefs and their integrity. For example, do our beliefs justify behaviors that aren't in alignment with our values? A belief is something we take to be true, as we said, and our values are about what matters most, what is most life-enhancing. Our beliefs tend to divide us, our values bring us together. The person stranded on the rock may have made some errors in judgment, but in that moment they are neither red or blue or any other color, but someone in danger and in need of help. Our spirits, our souls, our higher truth speaks to us all the time about what matters most, our values, but really not so much about what we believe. It's hard for us to hear the higher truth through the density of so many of our beliefs, but when the two are in alignment with each other, we have something of power and possibility. We're going to have beliefs of one kind or another. So we might as well be mindful and conscious and wide awake, aware participants of our belief-making process, and explore what matters most, because as the research clearly shows, there is a self-fulfilling aspect to our beliefs. Know your values with exquisite clarity and how they are expressed in our beliefs. This is very important for personal integrity and spiritual growth. We cannot advance our practice of compassion unless we recognize how our belief-making minds capture us all and stop to consider the implications of our beliefs. Real change, it's been said, in the world will only come from a change of heart and a radical change in how and what we believe. And certainly, in this journey of humankind, we have come here to do more than just believe something. There's this common misunderstanding that when we have some spiritual awakening, when we have some spiritual insight, or even when we just think of ourselves as good people, that compassion will be a natural byproduct of this realization. And certainly there can be that quivering of the heart, as the Buddhists say, that quivering of the heart, the recognition of our oneness. But it is not a given that we will know how to live that fundamental awareness of oneness. To grow a field of compassion requires a lot of care and maintenance, and there's a lot of weeding to do. Compassion needs mindfulness, guidance, training, wisdom, so we can choose our beliefs wisely and believe responsibly. When we mindfully ask, what is the most compassionate thing that I can do right now or not do right now, to say right now or to not to say right now, it becomes immediately practical. Brings things into perspective, offers us guidance. What is the most compassionate thing to do? Not in a self-conscious way, look at me, I'm being compassionate. Not in a self-righteous way, but in a mindful way that provides us with a view as if we're flying over the islands. Dear friends, would you take a breath with me, please? Oh, doesn't that feel wonderful? Deep breath. I sincerely, with all my heart, hope that something wonderful happens for you today. Thank you.
Hearing Sally, hearing Sally Joe and Ruth Ann's mindfulness talk, I was remembering I hadn't talked about my mother, who's my most direct ancestor. You know, that's true of all of us, I hope you realize. And at some point, when I was in first grade or second grade, she communicated to me about taking piano lessons. I don't remember it, but it started then. And then I played piano my whole life. So the music you're going to hear today is because of my mother. Marjorie Crawford, dear departed mother.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks to your mom. We can all thank our moms for so much. And thank you, Ruth Ann, for that beautiful talk and presentation, thoughtful presentation for us all. This is the time in our service when we offer to the community some of our wealth and some of our wonderful service back to the community. And this gives us an opportunity to share in the stewardship of this wonderful historic building and all the programs that take place here. So I'm going to send the plate around, and I know that folks online are very helpful and loyal in giving their donations online on the website, interfaithcommunitysanctuary.org. We appreciate that deeply because it helps us to pay the bills. As you know, that gets done. And we're very grateful for all the work and the volunteer work that goes on to help us also maintain the beautiful building, the grounds, keeping the water running and the lights on, and all of the piano tuned and all the wonderful things that happen to make this place a very warm and inviting place for all of us. And a lot goes on here besides our wonderful Sunday morning services at 10 a.m. every Sunday. And next Sunday, before I forget, will be the second Sunday of the month, the Universal Worship, which takes place the second Sunday of every month at 10 a.m. And it will be an exploration of a variety of different faith traditions on the topic of our month. And then after the service today, we have our guiding council meeting at 11:45. For those of you who are able, we'd love for you to stay and join in the discussion about just all kinds of everyday issues that come up with us in our community that need to be talked about in loving ways and resolved and decisions made, and just, informing each other of what's going on. And all are welcome to the guiding council meeting. Also, after the service, everybody's invited downstairs for coffee, tea, whatever snacks we can find down there. It's usually something to share. And we have events that go on all throughout the week as well. One thing I don't want to forget to mention, the yoga class that normally meets on Sunday evenings at 6 o'clock is not meeting today. I think it was a holiday weekend. Julie, who usually runs that class, Julie Randazzo, is out of town. And so she asked me to mention that is canceled today. It'll be back next Sunday, I think, the usual time, 6 o'clock. And I'll put a little sign on the door because we didn't get it into the website as a cancellation in time. And then we do have so many events happening throughout the week. Every day of the week, something's going on. It could be in the evening, it could be in the afternoon. Please check our website for what we call upcoming gatherings. And that's where you will see the different classes that are offered. Many are offered on Zoom, many are offered in person, and they're not all classes. Some of them are gatherings like meditation. There's a meditation group on Thursday. There are different aspects of our spiritual life that we may want to explore. And everybody has a different interest, a different, what draws them, and maybe a different time of the week that they're free to participate. And some people, like I said, participate from home on Zoom. Some of the classes or activities are hybrid, so you can participate on Zoom or in person based on what suits your interest and your ability. So please check that out, and do join us because it enhances all of our experience as we encounter each other throughout the week in different aspects. Course in Miracles, a Masnawi class, a class in Christian mysticism, whatever it is that turns you on, you can join us. And most of them are, of course, they're all free, but there's a love offering involved. And there's some special events that happen only once a year or only once in a while. And a couple of special events are coming up. And I'm going to invite Jamal up to talk about a couple things. One is an event next Sunday that's not happening here, but that we're involved with, some of our partners are involved in, and then a dinner that's happening here also in September, on the 21st of September, which is a Saturday. We're having dinner with others, which you've been hearing about in other locations. This time it's going to be here at Interfaith Community Sanctuary.
You want to mention
So, well, you talk about this.
Yes. So September 8th, September 21st is the dinner with others. And for that you have to register, right, Sally Jo? Yes. Okay. Okay. And then on September 8th, next Sunday, we have this wonderful program to meet this wonderful guru lady who is the leader of 10 million people, Nirankari Mission. And how many of you remember working with Nirankari Mission with our community? I think Steve and Sally Jo. So Nirankari Mission is a local group here, the local group who say they have no religion. Their religion is service. And they have been bonded with us for many years. And those of you who remember, they have a large group. Their men, their women, their children, they all pitch in to really make the program very successful. I remember one year they built tents in the parking lot, and it was a very successful event. So we haven't been in touch with them because of the pandemic. They've come back suddenly, and now we're reconnecting with them, and they're going to be a very integral part of our community in cooperation, in collaboration, in doing all kinds of interfaith programs. So they're saying, please, on September 8th, it's free, come to this event in Macau Hall, which is in Seattle Center, I believe, Macau Hall? Yeah. And food is free, program is free, and they'll make sure that we meet this wonderful guru lady there. So all you have to do is just go to this QR code and tell them you're coming so they can prepare wonderful food for all of you. Thank you. Oh, okay. So I think we finished with so we want to thank our wonderful friends out there on cyberspace. We say goodbye to them and remind them their presence is always a blessing. Salam, sayonara, bye-bye.